In the beginning, I was extremely, before we went to different follow-up appointments, particularly at Sunnybrook, I was so concerned about their movements, about this and about that, especially with Maya, because, with the weaker core muscles and everything, and just progressing a little bit slower, I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because of everything that Alexis went through, she was basically given a 1 in 500 chance of living. And with her extremely rough course in the NICU, they told me that to kind of prepare myself, that there could be something, there could be a potential diagnosis. Both my girls had intraventricular bleeds, both grade 2s, I believe. So grade 4 being the worst. The long and the short of it was this subsequent head ultrasound at term revealed that Alexis's ventricles were still enlarged. So, and they didn't know why. So they told me that the weekend before my baby shower. So obviously my head was not in it. I was just in shock. And I just thought, for everything that these girls have been through, because you had thought that you had moved beyond that, waiting for the bad news and the other, shoe to drop, so to speak. So she went for the MRI, and basically they said they didn't know why the ventricles were enlarged, that there was no blockage, so we were thankful for that. But they did tell me that her brain didn't seem to have as many grooves as Maya's. So I said, well, what does that mean? Long-term wise, we don't know. Okay. So all of this, I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I guess when I took them home, overwhelmed at dealing with 2 babies home on oxygen. Chris was still working at the time, so it was just me, 24/7 with them. Trying to get some sleep, basically coming home to no support. And everyone said, well, you're a nurse. You should be able to, this is all, you should know all this. Oh yeah, really? I never dealt with oxygen in my life. Nothing, nothing could have prepared me. Medical training aside, it was just kind of trial and error. And I hate to say that. There were times where you're taking 2 babies out to the pediatrician's office. And I think I thought I opened the oxygen, but I closed it and I couldn't figure out why the monitor was alarming. And it was just so much of a challenge. And looking back, I don't even know how I managed. It was just nightmarish trying to adjust to twins, adjust to, yes, the lack of sleep, but then also their complex medical needs, and realizing that it was just us responsible for their care. And and then when Chris lost his job, was living with one another, and there was no outlet, couldn't leave the babies with anybody, so my whole mental health piece was awful. Couldn't be around anybody. I was so paranoid and so anxious taking them out to different appointments that people would look at them, that they would get sick, that, we'd be back into the NICU, or not NICU, but we'd be back in the hospital again. There was just so much stress. And then I felt like I lost myself. And all the while I had to resume my master's, courses. I put my master's degree on hold. I was just doing it, part-time online, but I resumed my studies in January. So at least that it gave me an outlet, but it was also more kind of stress and trying to manage everything. And I guess what worries me now is that they're going to be different, just in terms of the hearing piece. I don't want my kids to get made fun of, or I worry about all that. I also worry that I guess I'm very type A and a very kind of an overachiever, and not that I'm wanting to project that onto my kids at all, but I guess part of me worries like about the whole learning disorder, like they're at greater risk for ADHD, they're at greater risk for behavioral issues, like, and I don't know what the case may be, what the future might hold. And I know there's always that uncertainty for any child. But with preemies, you're always told, about the higher chances for certain things. I guess what worries me as well is because they're December babies. I worry about the fight that we may or may not have with with actually enrolling them in school. Maybe we might decide to hold them back. I don't know about that. So then I worry, well, what if they're a year older than their classmates, if we do? And I worry too about, when Maya, for example, will meet her milestones, whether their speech is where it should be. Like, I'm just a worrier. That's always been in my nature, but I think it's just kind of compounded with everything they've gone through and all that additional uncertainty. I was always worried about neurological consequences and things like that, and diagnoses. In the beginning, I couldn't even say the word CP without, I guess my fear was if I say it, then it might happen. Not that that's the worst thing, right? Because there's various forms. I guess I'm just worried about debilitating disabilities and them just not leading fulfilled lives and being accepted by society. I guess I'm always worried about what other people will think. And I don't want my kids to have to feel different. And even still, when the word special needs comes up, I wouldn't call my kids, say that they have special needs. I say they have unique needs, but a lot of kids do, Yes, they've got their hearing loss, but I don't want to define them by that, and I don't want them to be defined as different. It was hard enough going out in public with the kids with their oxygen. It was weird to say that you actually felt more at home in the hospital and when you're taking them to follow-up appointments because, people would look at them and they wouldn't be, shocked or staring or asking questions. But, when you took them to Costco or to the mall, actually got up that courage once. But, people would stare, and even now you get questions like, oh, why are they, like, they're how old? And particularly Maya, with her being so little, they think she's 6 or 7 months. And when I say, oh no, 16 or 17, then they're shocked. And I guess people's ignorant comments too, or we ran into this one lady at the park, and I'm even fearful to take them there because, this woman was pregnant. I don't know how many children she had, but she was pushing one in a swing. That might have been 2, but she was asking how old my kids were. And, I said that they were preemies born quite early on oxygen. And this lady made this comment, she might have been 8 or 9 months pregnant. She said, oh, I just can't wait till I have this baby. I'm so fat. And I'm just thinking, my God, like, do you know what you're saying? How I wish to, have been in your situation, I was so envious of that. And I still to this day have a hard time, seeing pregnant people, and I don't know, I guess you're grieving the loss of, I guess, what could have been, and also having that normal mat leave, play dates and play groups and, taking them here and there because we pretty much were sheltered. I'm a part of this Facebook group. It's the Sunnybrook NICU families. So, there's lots of families with, who might have been a little bit further, but everyone's NICU experience is different. I know some people who have brought their babies home on oxygen. Not as many in the same circumstances with having 2 babies home on oxygen, plus the hearing loss, plus the this and the that. I'm friends with some preemie parents, But I find sometimes it's still hard because, some of them live out in the East End, and now with me going back to work, it's not as much time to actually connect. And, when you do get together, you still can't help but compare what are your kids doing versus what my kids are doing. And I guess I'm also part of some other preemie Facebook groups, and but again, I still find it hard because again, it's comparing and thinking, oh well, yours was a 24-weeker and yours is doing so much more than mine, and then yeah, so it's hard in that regard. I would say if it was 15, 20 years out, things have changed. NICU life has changed. I think with time it brings technology, like changes in technology. Preemies are living longer, like former preemies, kids at younger and younger gestational ages is what I'm trying to say, are living. That's not to say that, those families haven't had traumatic experiences or things like that. But I think nowadays it's more common for kids to go home on oxygen. Whether that was the case 20 years ago, I don't think so. I think they would have kept them longer. That's basically from, what I've been told. But I agree. I think maybe, 5 years out or something, there should be some sort of a separation, so that, you aren't constantly comparing, your kids that are of similar gestational ages. And I'm still kind of connected to some families that I met while we were in the NICU. But you're right, you do find yourself comparing and thinking, oh my goodness, my kids aren't there yet. I'm a planner, but then again, the future scares me because it's all this uncertainty, right? And change is hard for me to cope with. So the idea of what it's going to be like in 3 years, I have no idea. I'm just trying to get through a week at a time at this point. Or some days it's a day at a time. But, when you're living all the challenges, it's like you're in a constant state of crisis. And I think we're past that. I'm happy to say that. I think we're past that. Yes, we have little mini crises that arise every now and again. Now with Maya not gaining weight in 3 months, I feel like a terrible parent, but I don't know. But anyways, yeah, and I guess now just being able to go out without bringing oxygen. Like me right now dropping the girls off with my mother-in-law and not having had to have left any oxygen. That's a huge thing. Or feeling kind of normal in that sense, right? The hearing aid piece, I'm still coming to terms with that. Particularly because of them having to, us having to put bonnets on them. So it sets them apart, right? They look different. And people asking what it is. And I've always been a self-conscious person when it comes to those types of things. So to attract kind of unwanted attention in that regard, and I'm always worried about what are other people, how they're perceiving me, or, now how they're perceiving the kids, even though I really shouldn't care. I always feel like I have to explain myself or explain, oh, well, they're preemies. That's why she looks small, or, so that I kind of don't get this, I don't know, some of these responses like, oh, she's 17 months, or, oh, she's not doing that. Some people said, again, you got to count your blessings, this and that. And I get it. I know I do. But it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't negate what I'm feeling. And some people understand what's going on, like they can, appreciate it, but everyone wants to put in this positive spin, and sometimes, I can be a pretty negative person and have more of this pessimistic kind of view. I guess I try to prepare myself for the worst, and maybe I waste a lot of energy worrying about things that may never come to fruition, or as opposed to cherishing things that I should. So I guess some comments that continue to highlight, try to change my focus to that on positives. It makes sense, but sometimes I don't. I'm like, really? And people who make comments that don't understand, that I find is challenging, or, I don't know, people who claim to understand, but they don't. If their baby was born at 34 weeks or 36 weeks. Yes, maybe they had an NICU stay, but I'm sorry, it probably was nothing like mine. Not to say that, there aren't people that have such experiences, but also, I don't know too many people who took both their babies home on oxygen, who both babies have had the permanent hearing loss, who, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything like that, because I think any parent would cope as best as they could in my situation. And people say, oh, I don't know how you did it. Well, I always say, you do the same thing. Maybe you don't think you would, but you would. Mm-hmm. There's that unconditional love for your child, so yeah, you would. You totally would. And you just somehow you find the strength to just carry on. Among all the setbacks, for us, the diagnoses, the job losses, the my own health issues, you just kind of find a way to get through it and build your resiliency. But I just wouldn't wish our situation and our encounters upon anybody, and that's kind of why I've just really would like some sort of change to occur at a system level.